There's a lot of things you can say about Hiro Mashima's bibliography, mainly because there's so much of it. 3 long-running action series, hundreds of chapters long, monthly and bi-weekly side projects, dozens of one-shots, and on top of that he apparently still has time to learn how to make video games and storyboard the occasional anime episode. I can only wonder how this man is not dead yet. Truly speaking, the thing Mashima does best is maintain this level of creative output. It's actually exceptional, even by mangaka standards. But today I want to talk about a trope Mashima uses in many of his works, and how well I think he executes it. That trope being the mirror match. When a character has to fight a rival and a foil with an identical skill set. Even if the power systems in his works are simple and loose with the rules, the way he can highlight the difference between characters through seeing them use the same tools in different ways can't be understated. He does it so often, it could feel like an easy fallback, and maybe it is, but tropes are tools, and they can be used very differently even by the same author across similar works. Ravemaster is crawling with examples, but admittedly I'm much more interested in his later manga, Fairy Tail and Eden Zero, so I'll go over my 2 favorite examples from those series. One of the earliest arcs in Fairy Tail centers around Grey Fullbuster and his childhood friend Leon. They both use ice make magic, basically they can create ice in any shape they imagine. Their teacher insists that maker magic is an expression of freedom and creativity, but ice is also a symbol of stagnation in this setting, and the primary contrast between the 2 students' fighting styles is movement. Grey can only make static objects, weapons and tools. He can throw them and he can swing them, but the ice itself can't move, while Leon is capable of creating dynamic objects, animals made of ice that can move like they're alive. He's even capable of casting with one hand, something Grey and never do. Their powers reflect the different ways they process grief over their master. Grey appears no different than he was as a child, wishing to abide by his master's wishes and let Deliora stay frozen. At a glance, he has an advanced ice make magic beyond what was capable of, while Leon wants to prove he surpassed by defeating the demon and putting it to rest for good, so that he can move on without any regrets. Leon appears like he's progressed while Grey is stuck in place. Leon is moving, but he's also unstable and reckless. All of his posturing is just that. His techniques only look more advanced than hers. His moving animals don't have the same strength and stability that Grey's objects do, particularly because Leon is only casting with one hand. He's so desperate to prove himself better than that he tries to look more impressive. It's really childish. He's literally saying, "Look at me, I can do it with one hand." He's not only progressing as a wizard or sorting through his feelings, he's not even taking advice to heart and going out onto the continent to see what the world actually holds. He's running in circles, and the attack Grey uses to defeat Leon is Ice Cannon. 2 static objects, when combined in a mechanism, create movement. If maker magic is freedom, then the only limit is your creativity. Grey's fights stand out as the most strategic within Fairy Tail for this reason. Grey can move forward, and he actually has been all these years. He's just slow when it comes to processing his own emotions, which is fine. Everything should go at its own pace. Forcing the issue isn't always the right call. The arc ends with the twist that Deliora died within the ice. Ice Shell may have looked like a temporary solution, but it didn't just prolong the problem. Throughout the years after the sacrifice, ice kept on fighting Deliora, slowly whittling away the demon's life, ending the arc with another supporting metaphor. Time heals all wounds. It can just be hard to tell how much time is needed. Galuna Island is surprisingly strong for an early battle shonen arc, and it helps lay the groundwork for the core themes like freedom, fear of the future, grief, and the slow process of healing. In addition, now that the early ideas of Grey's character are established, most of the enemies he fights would continue to play with the ideas of stagnation and momentum, a speedster, a time wizard, other ice mages, etc. And it's notable that one of Grey's greatest progressions as an ice wizard isn't learning how to freeze things, it's learning how to unfreeze objects and to give them movement again. And one hilarious way his dynamic with Leon continues is actually with Juvia and their stupid love triangle. Juvia is water, which is a great match for ice, and her being a liquid is symbolic of how quickly she makes up her mind about things and how persistently she pursues them. Unlike ice, which is static, water literally can't sit still. She's very quick to understand her feelings for better or worse. While Grey takes forever to warm up to Juvia, man up, and give her a real response to her advances. And Leon is in the middle trying in vain to win Juvia over. He's trying to move forward but can't see that his approach will never work, meaning he's running in circles again. Absolutely brilliant, 10 out of 10. While I do think Grey and Leon stand head and shoulders above other mirror matches in Fairy Tail, There's still plenty of other strong examples. I could just as easily have made this section about Lucy and Angel. Both understand that celestial spirits are more than tools. They're people with personalities and relationships. Angel is just willing to use that to her advantage, while Lucy respects those bonds and in turn creates her own with the spirits. And the resulting fight is full of fun gags and challenges centered around Angel metagaming which spirits Lucy's are least willing to fight. And with that said, I want to move on to my favorite rivalry Mashima ever created. Eden Zero has roughly half a dozen different characters who fight with gravity, so it's a good thing the story is also very flexible when it comes to using gravity symbolically. The main character, Shiki, is the embodiment of freedom. Nothing, not even gravity, can hold him down. He uses his ether to control his own gravity to make himself stronger and to fly through the air. We see many planets have a way of keeping people trapped on them. Prison mines, indentured servants, and outright slavery. Planets being the centers of gravity is a metaphor for the control that societies have over people. Shiki makes his ship, the Eden Zero, his home because out in space, gravity doesn't exist. It's funny how gravity and the ability to control it can represent both freedom and restraint at the same time. Yet when you see it in Eden Zero, it makes complete sense. In many manga and fiction in general, the vast frontier of space represents freedom in a similar way to the ocean in other works. The oldest example I can think of is Space Captain Harlock and the whole space pirate subgenre. If you called Eden Zero Space One Piece, I wouldn't disagree, but everything it has in common with One Piece, it has in common with other space pirate stories. And freedom being a core value of the work is one of them. And Shiki's foil is Prince Shura, a very self-centered individual, a spoiled prince in his own kingdom. He lives on planet because he's not as interested in freedom as he is control. Most of the time, he uses his ether to control the gravity of other people and objects. His introduction doesn't show us his ability to fly. He uses gravity to fling his servants into the ceiling. His go-to tactic is to hold people in place and manipulate them. He hates robots with autonomy, but likes machines for how useful they are. He even tries recruiting Shiki at first because to him, gravity is a tool to pull in more tools and pawns. This is even more interesting because Shiki is a lonely kid desperately and awkwardly looking for friends in a vast cosmos. Had this encounter happened sooner, Shiki may very well have gotten pulled in by Shura's gravity and risked falling into his ranks. Shiki's gravity develops to attract friends, his ability to connect with people directly playing into his gravity when he makes the memories of other people fall into him. And it's possible that Shura does the opposite. While nothing explicit happens with his powers the same way Shiki's do, the one person that came to truly love Shura did it out of pity and empathy, despite pretty much being his slave. Where Shiki tries to understand others and ends up pulling in a loyal crew, Shura only managed to truly pull in one person, and he basically did it by chaining her to him and forcing himself onto her. Similar to Gray and Leon, they both had the same teacher, but it's not that their powers progressed in different directions. Shiki and Shura have access to the exact same skill set. It's about what abilities they more often choose to rely on and for what purpose that creates the difference in fighting styles. The first time Shiki manipulates someone else's gravity, it's to help Rebecca fly. Or when Shiki pulls people towards him in some of his big attacks, it's not that he's necessarily manipulating their gravity, rather he's making himself the center of gravity. Outside of how their gravity contrasts each other, you can also look at their overdrive forms. We're told that when one goes into overdrive, their body changes on a molecular level to reflect what they believe to be their optimal form. Knowing this, it's impossible to ignore that Shiki looks more and more like his adoptive dad Ziggy the robot as the series progresses, while Shura's overdrive mimics his adoptive dad Emperor Nero, the octopus alien man. Both change to look like who they see as the most aspirational figure in their lives. Ziggy is one of the most famous pirates in the cosmos, while Emperor Nero is the highest authority in one of the largest empires in the universe. And it doesn't matter if they're human or not. Even when they just so happen to be two completely different people with the same ability, there's still at least two major similarities underneath it all. A want to live up to their adoptive fathers, and a need for companionship. And these two aren't even the only gravity users in the series worth talking about. There's 4 other characters, but they fall into one of 2 camps. Shiki's mentors, who more or less fall in line with his beliefs, and the endgame villains who use gravity as a force for pure destruction. Gravity creates structure, it's what literally holds planets and solar systems together, but too much of it creates a void, a black hole consuming it all. It's also no coincidence that the 2 leads have the powers of gravity and time respectively, because these 2 things affect one another through the theory of relativity. The way the concepts of gravity are played with in Eden Zero and how flexible the presentation of it is probably the most noteworthy thing about the work, at least to me. Getting back to the topic of this video, it wouldn't be unwarranted to call the mirror match an overused trope. But at the end of the day, tropes are just tools. And this one in particular has to adapt to the characters and whatever agency and symbolism their powers have within the context of their setting. Also, it's just really cool and exciting when suddenly the good guy has to fight an evil, edgy version of themselves, and they had a cool power and this guy's the same power. It's like, whoa, dude, it's gonna be a tough fight if he's just as strong as I am and has all my powers. It's just really cool to look at most of the time. You can certainly find less interesting examples than what we discussed today, but you can't convince me that you wish the trope was gone either. Thank you all for watching. Like and sub if you want to see more, and if you want to hear me talk more about Eden Zero specifically, there is a video on the side channel which may or may not be up at the time you hear this. If I'm being completely honest, this video was kind of just an excuse for me to talk about my two favorite subplots from these manga, just because I found a connection between them. Although it is true that Mashima uses this trope a ton, so I would love to hear your favorite example within his works or other works. And with that said, goodbye. See you in the next one.